Hey, hey, ladies and gentlemen. I love that we get to say that now. So cool. I'm Laurie Marie. If you don't know who I am, I'm the one that put together this awesome group of amazing humans. I am, oh gosh, that word I am, it's like so loaded, right? Because really at the heart of things, like we're more than just our jobs or what we do or, the things we label ourselves. But I guess if you were to look at like what it is that I do or what it is that I help people with, I help people with branding, I help them with coaching, I help them with intuitive guidance. I am a psychic medium. There are many things that I do help people with. But today I'm here to do live intuitive guidance. So if you have a question, be sure to post it in the comments below and I will answer them in the order that I get them. And that's kind of how this goes. We'll see if anybody jumps on today. I know it's Sunday and I don't know, I was feeling like doing a session and I've never really done them in our group, I realized. I do them on my Facebook page, but I've never done them in the group, so we'll see how this goes. See if anybody's showing up. I just got done. I really felt that today was a day that like my body wanted to get out of the house, go explore, as well as get a massage, to be honest. And so that's what I did. I went and got a massage today at this little Thai massage place just up the street from me, like a mile away. And it was incredible. I've never had a Thai massage before, but it was amazing. They actually like walk on your body. Like there are beams across the ceiling, and they hold on to them and they walk across your body and they get into the tight spots with their toes and their heels, and like it's an ancient art, of course, but it's just fascinating. I had never experienced a massage like that before. So if it's your first time getting a massage, I may not recommend it because you may be a little weirded out at first. So get comfortable, getting massages. If you've never gotten a massage, like start slow, get one, and make them a regular practice. It's really important to do body work as well as energy work. And I do it to make sure to help manage and maintain my energy. And I really pay attention to like what my body's asking, what it's needing. And today it was like, you need a massage. So that's what I went and did. So, it was wonderful. It was like an hour and I just feel like looser in my body, especially like working on a laptop for all of us entrepreneurs that are like on our laptops a lot. I don't know about you, but I get really tight through like my shoulders, and I must like kind of do this sort of thing, where I'm like hunching or like bringing my shoulders up and like just holding them there. So I've started to pay attention to like, am I breathing? Like that's a really good place to start. Am I breathing? Am I, taking breaks in between? Sitting at the computer for long periods of time can not only be, I'm sure, as you know, hurtful to our eyeballs, just because we're not used to looking in that long, but it's also, it also, like I said, can cause some tension throughout our neck and shoulders, and can really play havoc with us. So it's important to move our bodies and to get out and go get massages. So, what else? This weekend's just been kind of a chill weekend. I did a little bit of work, but other than that, I've been like relaxing. I've been diving into, I read this book, Money, a Love Story, like a couple years ago, but I wasn't really ready to really dive in. And it's something that I've been working on and really looking to heal is a lot of my money stuff and my money patterns. And I found some really interesting stuff yesterday when I was doing some of the exercises, some of the stuff that came up around worthiness. Interestingly enough, it was tied to my dad. And he, and it's not to say like, it's not blaming him or anything like that, but it was interesting that that came through. And when I looked at that, my dad was very much a saver and my mom was a spender. And so I got two very conflicting messages from both parents. And then my mom, I always felt like she really saw me, and she would always like take us, my sister and I, and buy us things and whatever. My dad never rarely bought anything. My mom was the one that always took us shopping, took us out to eat, that sort of thing. She was always the one that paid. And so it was interesting. And then on top of that, my dad was really good at math, and he'd get really frustrated that I didn't get it. So when he tried to help me with math, and my mom struggled with math too, so she didn't want to help me with math. But what I realized, kind of looking at all these pieces and parts, is that somewhere along the line, I told myself that I wasn't good with money because I'm bad at math. That was the story. And then somewhere along the line, I also had this underlying belief that because of the way that my mom showed love, I, somewhere in my little, child brain, decided that my dad doesn't see me and he doesn't think I'm worth buying things for, or worth, I equated love to worth and to what my parents bought me. So the fact that my dad didn't buy me anything, I noticed was an underlying belief that I had. Now, I can look at it as an adult and say well, that's, not true at all. And I see where my dad's views of scarcity came from. He grew up in a family of 8 brothers and sisters, had a lot of kind of, when it came to dinner time, it was you grab what you can, and if you don't grab it, you don't get it. So there was a lot of even to this day, there's a lot of scarcity mindset around food, around money. And, I can have a lot of compassion for him and where he's at and why he was so adamant on saving. Saving to him meant safety and security. And they grew up, in his family, they grew up very poor. So now that I'm an adult, I can look at this, I guess you could say, bird's eye view of the situation, right? And there were times when I was little that I had, there was one time I actually stole my dad's change jar, and I used that money to buy the bus driver a birthday present. Now, should I have stolen? No, but I did, and I used it to buy her a gift. And I got punished for that. And it, it was another piece of the many pieces that somewhere along the line, I told myself that I wasn't worthy. And so when we start to really look at our money story and look at where it comes from and what we believe, we can start to get really clear on where our feelings of unworthiness come from, our feelings of oh, I don't deserve that, even if it's on an unconscious level. Because in general, I feel like I do deserve, everything that's meant for me. I feel like I do, give a lot. And so I do, on a very conscious level, feel I do deserve, and I am worth what I ask, people to pay and whatnot. But sometimes we find ourselves blocked, like blocked energetically, blocked abundantly. And a lot of times we sit here and we say like, what is going on? Or like, why? Or maybe we're afraid to, I remember back when I first started out in photography, I was so afraid to like charge what I needed to charge in order to really run a successful business. I thought nobody's going to pay that. And it was because I couldn't afford it. So then I looked at that and I said, well, if I'm not going to pay for it, nobody will. But that was just a limiting belief that I have. And a limiting belief is just something that we've told ourselves along the way. We have all kinds of stories that we have come up with because our minds are very clever. And there's all kinds of stories as to why we can't have something, why we don't deserve something, why we can't charge something, how long we think things are going to take. You know, like, oh, well, I'll be successful in like 5 to 10 years. Like, that's when I'll really make it, you know? Who says? Who says that tomorrow you can't book a new client and like raise your rates? Who says that, you know, a week from now you won't stumble upon a new opportunity? Like, the only thing, like, we are inherently abundant. Like, that's just who we are. Like, we are made of energy and our natural state is abundant. But the only reason we're not abundant or our outside, you know, perception maybe doesn't look like we're abundant is because we're blocking it somehow. There's some unconscious belief, some limiting belief that's there that tells us like we're not worthy enough of it, we can't charge for it, we don't deserve it, nobody would ever pay that. We have all these really incredible stories that help us to see. Hey, welcome. We have all these amazing stories around what we can have and what we can't have. And so, hey, welcome. I've just been hanging out here by myself. I was just sharing that this weekend I've been spending time really kind of diving into my money story. And I've been working for several years on really healing my money stuff. And because it was rooted pretty deep. And I discovered yesterday when I was doing this exercise that there were a lot of ties between feeling worthy and my father, actually. And so it was interesting to uncover that. I had a good few tears around that, but I can also then move past that and say, like, okay, even though these things happened, even though I've told myself these things, right? I know that I'm worthy. And I also know that my dad loves me. Like, he does his best to show love the way he can. Yeah, I had no doubt. I have no doubt that he does his very best in the way that he knows how. You got to remember, like, our parents, their parents, like, there is a whole history of, like, not only their own limiting beliefs, their stories, their experiences, their maybe, maybe trauma they haven't healed that gets passed on over and over and over. So everybody's repeating patterns that they pick up from parents who were trying to do the best that they could with what they had at the time, but they're just not capable of any, it's what's the word? It's like a fool's errand to think that they can do things the way that you want them to do and be the way that you'd like them to be. Like, I would love to have more of a connection with my dad. He has never understood how to communicate with my sister and I. Like, his way of showing love and communicating was teaching us things and showing us and giving us lectures on ketchup and not turning and saving electricity. Like, that's how he showed love. He was affectionate, he'd give hugs and things like that. Welcome. But he, in general, didn't know how to show love in a very communicative way. I guess that's the best way to put it. So, looking at that, like, when I look at like his situation, like he grew up in a really big family. A lot of them were women. So I have a feeling that part of him was just like, you know what? I'm going to let them figure it out and I'm going to let them talk about it. And as one of the only men in the family, I'm going to just take a back seat. He was probably afraid to speak because there were so many women like ruling his world, right? Like growing up, my dad had, there was 9 kids total and only 1 other brother. So that means 7 sisters and a mom. So that was like 8-3. The odds were not good. And so he never really knew how to communicate with my sister and I, and that's okay. But I could take a look at that and I could say like, okay, these are the things that I made up in my mind when I was little about how my dad felt about me. And that tied into my worth as what I allowed in as far as like abundance or love or, there's so many ties. When I started really breaking this down, it was really interesting. And I realized that a lot of the choices I made in men too were because I didn't believe that I was worth anymore than what I had accepted. It was like I allowed table scraps when it came to men instead of really looking and believing that I deserved more than that. And I always had a tendency to really appreciate the good in all people. So I always overlooked the things that were like red flags, right? But over time, I've learned to heal those patterns and trust myself and trust my intuition along the way. Welcome. Just so you know, I have just been talking for a while because, nobody was on for a little bit. But if you have questions, pop them in. And I'm doing live intuitive guidance. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking about what I was talking about. I was talking about how this weekend I've been working on healing my... sounds so funny. Weekend I've been working on healing my money problem, my money stuff. I've been working on it for several years now, but I went back and actually really started to take a look at my money story and realized that a lot of the very unconscious beliefs came from my experiences with my dad and how somewhere along the line, my little child brain told me that dad doesn't spend money on me, mom does. Dad doesn't see me, mom does. And somewhere along the line, I told myself I wasn't worthy of love from men, especially. So, and good men, right? So it was really interesting to see all this and see how it was all tied in with my money, relationships to men, and how I have in the past felt very, what's the word? I have felt very, I'm trying to think what the word is. There have been many times in my relationships to men and money that I felt trapped at times. Like I was in a certain apartment that I didn't want to be in, or wasn't like, but it was what I could afford. Like for so long, I felt almost like trapped by my money situation. And then sometimes by the men that I was choosing too. And so it was really interesting to kind of dissect this and really get into like my money story. And I'll share with you the question that really brought all this up. Like I said, if you have questions, pop them in here. But, because this is supposed to be intuitive guidance, but now I'm talking about money and that story. which is fine. I'm open to whatever this may be. Okay, so one of the things that I took a look at is tell your story. So first you're going to tell your story in like the truth of what happened, right? And then you're going to actually take a look at it and rewrite it as if you are the heroine of your money love story. So get out your money love journal and write your own money love story. Where did it all begin? Where were the high points? Where were the low points? What were the gems? Tell your money story in a way you've never told it before. So one of the reasons Kate Northrup has you do this is to get really clear on like where your money, where your money beliefs came from and where, where they all started. Because a lot of times they're not even our own. What I found really fascinating with this is that I took this quiz that she puts in here about 2 years ago, and I wasn't quite ready to dive in deep, but now I'm like, yeah, game on. When I first took this quiz, I got a very low score. My score was between 0 to 11, and she puts it, you and your monies are on the outs, and then she goes into more description. But now my money, right, exactly. You can't change what you don't acknowledge or that you're not even aware of. And then my score went to actually a 38, which it said if your score is 30 to 39, which I was 1 point away from like acing this thing. It's true love. And then it goes in deeper, to kind of talk more about what that means, as far as it's really about, here's the thing. I've noticed when it comes to money, there have been times where I've avoided it, I've hid from it, I've ignored it, I have been afraid to answer the phone. Welcome. I've been afraid to answer the phone when creditors call. Like my money, my money past, my money history, it's something I have had to become very conscious of, very aware of, and to start to heal it by not hiding from it anymore. I used to just hide from it. I was so scared. I was so scared of what was going to happen. And the truth is, I've been in some pretty bad spots. And really, at the end of the day, nothing really terrible happens. So I can say that. And then I can say that when you actually start to take a look at your money and the relationship you have to money, you can start to shift it and it no longer has power over you. The reason it was so scary for so long is because I hid from it and I didn't want to look at it. And once I started looking at it and dealing with it and dealing with the emotions that were tied to it, that's why it's so fascinating to me, because money is just energy, but we tie so many emotions to it. We will leave partners over it. We will fight our, and not ever speak to our children over it. We get so freaking weird about money. Not even kidding. So weird. And the thing is, it's a made-up system. Somewhere along the line, someone decided, hey, I need a goat. And they were like, hey, I'm sick of carrying around these 3 cows. Here, have some coins. We made it up. And so the pieces of plastic in your wallet, the pieces of, green dollar bills in your wallet have no value except for that we say it does. But we also tie so much to what it means and what it means about us. I used to have such an issue with looking at the money in my bank account and saying if it was not a good number, if it was low, I made it mean all these things about me. And the truth is, whatever that dollar amount is, whether it's $1 million or $10, it has nothing to do with who you are as a soul. And so it's so important to let go of the shame and the guilt around that. I used to have so much shame and guilt around my money because I was a single mom. I was a single mom. I was like feeling a lot of judgment and shame from others. When I'd be at the grocery store, I'd have to put things back. I would have my card decline, and I made it mean so many different things about me. And the truth was, it didn't mean anything about me other than maybe I need a little help around the money, management department. But I didn't see it that way then, And so instead of getting support, I just went on feeling this like shame and guilt for like decades. And so I share this with you to say, like, wherever you are in your money story, like, one, you can rewrite it. So like I wrote out this whole thing from start to finish, and my next process in this writing your money story is to I'm going to read that in 1 second. Part of my process is to look at what happened, right? What actually happened, and what did I make it mean, and then rewrite it and make it like, how was I the heroine in this story? And so I'm really excited about that part, and I'm going to share with you, I think I'll do this another day, but I think it's important. I'm going to share with you that process, because I think it's good to take a look at, like, really, what is your money story? And so you can start to become aware of, like, where these thoughts and ideas come from. And then two, how you can flip it and look at it from a bigger perspective and say, like, you know what? I can look at everything that I went through around money and that I still, struggle with, and say that one day I beat it. One day I came and rose above it. And I know I'm resourceful. I know I have, for a long time I had a lot of fear around, like, oh my God, what if I end up like on welfare again, and like, or homeless, or who know, like, I think all these, scary thoughts, right? But then I was like, you know what? That's not even who I am anymore. Like, one, I got help because I needed it. I was stubborn for a long time, and at 26, I was like, you know what? Fine. Okay. I'll go and get assistance. So I did. And I used it while I needed it, and I got off of it as soon as I was done out of college. And I was so afraid of going back there, but the truth is, I can't go back there. And I have so many new tools and skills and things that I can do that it's not going to happen, So, like, that was something I had to really shift my mind around, because a lot of times we're so afraid of going back to somewhere we have been before. But the truth is, you can't go backwards. You can only go forwards. And you today can only go forward from where you are. So just know that whatever your money story is, you can rewrite it in any moment, and you can change it in any moment. The only thing stopping you from more money, more abundance, and when I talk about abundance, I'm not talking just money. I'm talking about abundance in love, abundance in relationships, in, just the beauty in your life. Like, if you're wanting more abundance and more money, the only thing stopping you is your own beliefs on whether or not you deserve it and your worth. Like, what you believe you're worth. Now, this may not even be a conscious belief, but it's there. If you have a hard time receiving compliments, allowing people to buy you coffee, if you have a hard time receiving gifts, but you love giving gifts, like, I guarantee there's some thing in there that is running your belief around what you deserve. And the truth is, you deserve everything you want and more. There is no reason other than you getting in your own way saying that you deserve it. So, okay, Heather, I'm going to read this here. Speaking of money, right now I'm working 2 jobs to save. Problem now is I feel I'm going to lose time. Yup. Yeah, I get that. Okay, so anytime you're feeling that pull, and I know it's scary, change can be scary, but the truth is, if you are being called to it, it is your time to make that. The universe is asking you to make that leap, to take that next step, to jump, if you will. And when you start to think of it, leaving, don't focus on what you're losing. Because here's the thing, the people you work with, if they're really, if there's really a connection there, you'll make time and you'll make the effort to continue those relationships. And when it comes to, thinking about what you're losing, focus on more of what you're going to gain. Like, how much time can you dedicate to other things that you love, like your art and your relationship, and what is possible with all this extra time that you'll have because you're not spending it working a ton of hours. And here's the thing, when we're afraid to do things like this, it's because we're not trusting in ourselves and trusting in spirit. And so know that if spirit is guiding you to it, like, it is for you. So I know it's scary, and it's okay to feel emotional around it. Like, it's an emotional thing. So let yourself feel how you want to feel about it, or how you need to feel about it. Cry it out, whatever you got to do. But just trust that this next step is for you. If you're feeling pulled to it, it's for you. So, one of the best things you can practice doing around letting go and surrendering, to change, is to, get quiet, spend time connecting to yourself, connecting to your intuition, and taking these steps. The more steps you take, the more your confidence will grow, and the more, the more you will see that you are provided for. If you are just coming on, I was waiting around for a bit, so I just started talking about money and healing my money stuff, and which is really good, so go back and watch it. A lot of good stuff came through. But the whole point of me doing this live was to do intuitive guidance. So if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the comments below, and then I'll take them as I get them. But yeah, I get it. Change can be scary, and I know all too well. And what I've learned from that, see, for those of you who don't know, where do I even start with where this journey began? So it really started in 2013, was my first, I guess you could call, spiritual awakening. It's when I was just starting to realize that it was time to make myself a priority. And so I had been going on for several decades as if everything was fine, but truthfully, everything was not fine. Actually, I should say more like 12 years, not decades. I lose track of time here. But in 2013, I kind of hit the peak of my self-hatred. I had gained over 100 pounds after sexual trauma. My son at the time was 6, and he saw it happen. And so I went and got help, but I did not get help for myself. And I went on for the next decade as if everything was okay, until it wasn't. So in 2013, I was in the Dominican Republic for a photography workshop, and I had a complete breakdown. And I realized that it was time to get myself help, and it was time to heal. And so I decided to make myself a priority. And I ended up going and seeing a therapist and working through a lot of trauma. Plus there was childhood stuff that came up too that I hadn't really even thought about, but that was definitely there. And the more I healed, the more conscious I became, the more I opened up to my gifts, the more I realized that the relationship I was in, the marriage I was in, was not probably the healthiest for me. And although comparatively, like, that relationship was better than all the other relationships I had ever been in. So I thought it was great, when I first got in. But honestly, looking back, there were still red flags. But I continued on this path of, like, getting better and feeling healthier and healing my trauma and learning to love myself and my body just as it is. And I did that successfully, very successfully. But what happened over the course of that 5 years of healing, I felt this pull to something greater. And ultimately what happened is I ended up going to Bali, Indonesia. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it, but I asked my guides, like, okay, if you want me to, I asked the universe, all right, if you want me to go, like, show me how. Because that year I had invested over $50,000 in my education out of pocket, and I wasn't exactly, like, loaded. I was doing well, but I wasn't, like, if you would have asked me how, I still don't know how it happened. But I asked the universe, okay, if you want me to do this, like, show me how. And I did just that. And what I heard back was create an ebook about what you already know and GoFundMe. And when I first heard GoFundMe, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, people are just going to think I'm trying to get a free vacation. But what I heard back was, no, if you share your story and come from the heart, people will show up. And so a few days later, I was like, okay, I just called 911. They gave me, they're here to pick me up. And now I'm like, no, I'm not going to go. Like, I have to try. So I did, and I tried. And that was one of the scariest things I ever had to do. Not only did I vulnerably share my story, which at that point I had never done before, but I also was putting it out to the world and asking them to support me and helping me get to Bali. Now, I thought I was going there to figure out where I was going next in business and in my mission, right? But what actually happened was I realized I needed to leave my husband. So over the course of the next 6 months, I went back home. I tried to work things out with him, and he didn't want to get help. And at this point already, there was such a divide because I was on this personal journey of, like, self-discovery and personal growth and development, and he just stayed the same, and he didn't want to go any further. So ultimately, that and many other reasons are what kind of separated us. And I'm not suggesting that if you're on this path, like, well, you're going to break up, right? That's not what I'm saying. However, what I have noticed is that when two people aren't working on themselves, they're not moving forward together. You don't have to be in the same car, but you got to be going down the same road, right? You're in your own lane. But if you're not heading in the same direction, eventually there may be, you may have to part. And so I just knew for us that my soul contract was up. And that was one of the scariest things ever, admitting to myself that I was going to get divorced. I had waited until I felt like I was so old when I got married, but I had waited until I was 30 when I got married. I had been asked like 3 other times and I said no, and by other people. And I waited. I felt like this was it. And I was committed. Like, my parents have been married for 45, 50 years. I don't even know, forever. Literally forever. And I was like, I knew in my heart that, like, once I said yes to someone, that was it. That's who I was going to be with for the rest of my life. Although I didn't realize how much I was going to change and how different I was going to feel about that. But I was there for 10 years. I stuck it out and I worked through it. And unfortunately, when someone else doesn't want to make change and you do, there's not a lot you can do about that. Now, I don't regret it. I learned a lot from that relationship. I've learned a lot from all relationships. But there does come a point where you have to jump and you have to take a leap. So after we finally got to a place where I knew by July of 2016 that I was done, that I didn't want any more of that relationship. It wasn't for me anymore. But I also didn't want to leave nasty. I didn't want us to fight and have it be all, terrible. And I told him that, because a lot of divorces are mean and ugly and messy and all this stuff. I made it really simple not to be mean and messy and ugly. I just said, look, I just feel like our time together is up. I want to do this in the most loving way possible. And I don't want anything. I wanted a clean break. I let go of my house. I let go of pretty much all my stuff, other than I narrowed it down to about 20 boxes, and I only took about 5 with me. My poor parents still have the other boxes at their house. But I just purged everything. And I wanted a clean break. I didn't want any ties energetically. Now, you could say well, you made a huge mistake. Financially, you could have, I could have taken the 401k. I could have taken the equity in the house. I could have done all that, right? But to me, energetically, it wasn't worth hanging around for that. And I wanted to prove to myself that I can make my own way. I can make my own fortune. I can make my own success. Because every other opportunity I've ever created, a man was involved. And this time, I wanted to do it for myself. I wanted to know that I did this. And really, truthfully, when I look back on all those times too, I did it anyway. It had nothing to do with them. Sure, some of them were supportive, and that's great. But really, that was me to begin with. But I just didn't want any ties to his money. Right? So I left. And when I left with $300 in my pocket and a car I couldn't afford and a trunk full of, 5 boxes, because I had a Mini Cooper, so a convertible Mini Cooper. So it was a 2-seater, so it couldn't fit much in it. So I just took my laptop, my photo equipment, and some boxes with stuff, and came out to California with a whole lot of faith. And I started house sitting for 3 weeks. That was as far as my plan. That's as far as the plan went. I knew I was going to be house sitting for 3 weeks, and it happened to work out at the time that I was coming out, of course. And from there, the rest has worked out. Has it been a struggle? Hell yeah, it's been a struggle. But I'm finally getting a foundation built under me. My money stuff was built, my house was built on sand. I was just doing what I could, hustling to make it work, make it happen, take care of me, take care of my son. And I didn't really have any stable foundation. So me coming out here and starting over, it's been rough. But I feel like I'm finally coming out of it. And I'm building a solid foundation for myself. This time, my house will be built on fucking steel. Pardon my French. But it's, money at the end of the day doesn't give you the thing you think it's going to give you. It shows you more of who you are. Really, at the end of the day. But if you can believe that all your needs are met and be grateful for what you have, I guarantee you more will come your way. More abundance. And it's really about you staying in a high vibe state. I realize now, looking back, the last year and a half, the majority of why I struggled so much financially was because I was not in a good state. Now, it wasn't because I got divorced. It wasn't because I moved out to California and only knew a few people. It was because I allowed myself to go into a funk. And I couldn't get out of that funk for a long time. Now, I don't blame myself. I don't beat myself up about it. It is what I had to go through. But I'm learning more and more that your vibe determines everything. Your vibe, your willingness to serve, and really knowing that you do deserve more. You have to require more. You have to demand more of yourself. Now, a lot of times we don't think that we're worthy or that we're deserving, but what we're really afraid of is that who do we have to be able to make that happen? How do we have to show up? Who do we have to, how do we have to show up? Can we be that responsible? Can we be that accountable? And the answer is yes, you're capable of all of it because it was all meant for you. Like what is meant for you will not miss you. But it's so important to believe that you can have it and you deserve it. And so to kind of come full circle with that, yes, I have taken many risks. I have been living on faith, literally, for the last 2 years, almost going on 2 years. I don't know what's next, but I know that I'm here for a mission. I know I'm here to serve people, and I'm healing my old beliefs and patterns along the way. I'm not always perfect. I don't want to be perfect because that's an impossible standard to meet. I want to be better than I was the day before, and that's what I'm working on every single day. Being better than I was the day before, forgiving myself for where I was at many times in my life, the mistakes I've made, and loving myself through it. Being kind and compassionate and gentle with yourself is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Self-love is not just about, bubble baths and massages. They're great, don't get me wrong. But what's really important is that you're being kind and compassionate and gentle and easy on yourself, because this shit ain't easy. Like being on a personal spiritual path, a path of self-development and growth is not easy. Sometimes I think it was like way easier being numbed out and like unconscious, and like that was so much easier. And I feel like I had more fun. But all that tells me is I just need to have more fun. And, which again is like keeping yourself in a high vibe state. Not allowing you to go, don't go down the rabbit hole. And when you do feel yourself starting to go, it's okay to go down the rabbit hole. But don't stay there. And the more you can reach out and ask for support when you're going down, you're headed down that rabbit hole, the more you can, hey girl, welcome. The more those time periods shrink. The more you reach out for support and the more you can allow yourself to feel your feelings around whatever's coming up, those become shorter and shorter. Those times, those feelings of being in that dark place become shorter and shorter, and you start to navigate them with a lot more ease. So, I know that's not really what we came here for today, but that's kind of what came through. So, ain't no shame in looking at your money. And there's no shame in whatever your money story is. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean anything about you as a soul. It doesn't mean anything about you and what you're worth. So just know that. If you're here now, you're good. I'm glad. I came on here to do intuitive guidance, but nobody was here for a while, so I just started talking about what I was doing this weekend for anybody watching the replay. And I started talking about Money a Love Story and how I was like rereading it for the second time and finally like diving into the questions and the meat of it, and discovered some really interesting stuff around what I knew that something had been blocking me. Like I had this feeling that like somehow I was blocking myself from more abundance, and I started to take a look at that and see like, where am I feeling like I don't deserve something? Like even today, I noticed a friend of mine asked me for brunch. And right now, part of the story I forgot to share was that last October, I surrendered my car. Now, after driving for 24 years, that was a tough thing to do. Now, there's been a lot of freedom in that. There was freedom in, like not having to pay for a car payment, not paying insurance, walking more, biking more, taking Ubers, being driven around. That's pretty sweet, especially in LA. But then there was the downside of feeling like if money was tight, feeling like I had feelings of being trapped here at times. And so I've really started to kind of look at like, it's all a matter of perception, right? I can look at it and say like, I'm trapped here. I don't have a car. Or I can say, actually, there's a lot of freedom in this. And I can walk. I can, all the options I listed before. Like there are so many, it's all in the way you look at things. Like how are you perceiving your life right now? And I really had to look at that and start to have more gratitude. Why I brought that up was because this morning I noticed it was interesting to do this exercise and then recognize how some of that, that little bit of level of like, I don't deserve this came up. So I had a friend reach out to me and she was like, hey, you want to do brunch today, 11:30? And the thing is, she's like a 39-minute drive away. Now that doesn't sound too bad, right? But when you're having to take an Uber, that's like an $80 ride. And I was like, I'd really love to have brunch with you, but I don't know if I should be spending money that way, And she's like, oh, well, what if, you could take, or if you could take it here, I could have a friend bring you back like at least halfway, which would cut down the cost. And I noticed it come up. It was so interesting. It was like, I basically responded to her and said like, oh, I don't want anybody to have to drive me back or worry about getting me back in time. I had other stuff anyway, but I noticed that story of like, oh, I don't want to put anybody out, like, and that underlying, the piece that's like important in this is that one, I didn't think it was worth an $80 car ride to go hang out with friends and brunch. Now, granted, $80 is a little excessive for a car ride, but it just was interesting to notice. And then the second thing, which I thought was even more interesting, was that I didn't want to put anybody out or ask anybody to give me a ride even halfway, let alone all the way. So like, I just noticed how these feelings or thoughts of like not deserving certain things still come up from time to time. Like if I had a car, I would happily drive someone halfway, especially if it was on my way. Like, absolutely. So why don't I believe that I deserve the same, or that somebody would be willing to do that for me? So it's really interesting when you start to take a look at like, where do you hold yourself back? Like, where do you tell yourself that, right? Thank you. But where do you hold yourself back? And where do you feel like, oh, if I do this or if I ask this, that's going to be too much. I don't want to, put people out. We're so afraid of putting people out, but the truth is a lot of times people are very willing to help, but we have to be willing to ask. When I asked people to help me get to Bali back in 2015, I was just laughing. My fingernail is in the shape of a heart. My chipped paint is in the shape of a heart. When I wrote down my story and I asked people to help me get to Bali in 2015. I had just got done reading one of the best books on asking. And it was called The Art of Asking. If you haven't read it, check it out. It's really great, especially when it comes to receiving and talking about, asking people for support. And it was a book all about how, human beings really want to help, but we have to be willing to ask. And a lot of times we're not willing to ask, or we're afraid to ask, or we don't want to be too much, or we don't want to put people out. So it's something I'm just diving deeper into, I guess, and kind of noticing, like, where do I hold myself back in all areas of life? Not just, in receiving like a ride or that sort of thing, but even like, there's been times I remember, you ever do something and then you get this thought like, oh, I should go blah, 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 like say somebody, I don't know, drop something and you think about going and helping them, but you don't actually do it. And then you sit there, for a while and be like, why didn't I go do that? Like, I'm noticing things like that. Now, I would go help pick something up for somebody, but I'm just saying, like, as an example, like, where do you hold yourself back? Has there ever been someone you wanted to smile at, but you were afraid to? Or someone that you even wanted to talk to, but chickened out? Or maybe it's, there's a venue that you wanted to go see if you can speak at, but you haven't done it yet. Like, where are you holding yourself back? I'm really starting to explore this and figure out more and more like what that's about. And movement is a big one for me. I've had so many times throughout my life where like I would just be so resistant to moving my body, which is crazy because I love moving my body. When I do it, I love it. So like, why am I resisting so much? And I think part of what I've figured out around that is that I don't know who I'm becoming. Who am I becoming if I'm in a light body? Who am I if I'm in a body that loves to move? Like, I think it's actually the fear of what I'm becoming that has been holding me back in different ways. And so I'm really starting to explore that because I don't want to hold myself back anymore. I feel like I spent a huge majority of my life not using my voice, holding myself back, staying silent when I wanted to speak. There's so many different things like throughout my life that I just like didn't allow myself to be seen. But then interestingly enough, if I feel like others don't see me, then I get really upset. So what's that about? Like, if you're not allowing people to see you, but then you get upset that people don't see you, like, it seems a little funny, right? So I'm really starting to look at how can I be seen more and how can I, stop holding myself back? Like, what am I holding myself back from and actually allowing myself to do it? So like I said, today I was like, okay, well, I've got some things I need to do, work-wise. Usually I don't work on Sundays, but today I was like, I want to get some stuff done. But then I was like, no, my body wants a massage. I'm going to go get a freaking massage. So that's what I did. So like, just start to pay attention to like, where are you holding yourself back? Or where are you maybe even pushing yourself too hard? I push myself to work too hard too often. And I've been practicing leaning back more and allowing. And the less that I do, the more I seem to be rewarded. So I'm starting to play with that. And I'm just like, I guess I'm in a very experimental phase right now where I'm like, let's just see what I could create that would be really fun. Or let's try this and see how this might work. Because I noticed I had a lot of stuff come up around, I would get really excited and I'd create something. And I think I've talked about this before, but I would get really excited and I'd create something and I'd put it out. And it was like literally the instant somebody wasn't interested, I felt deflated. I felt like, why am I even doing this? Nobody cares. And it was such an interesting thing to like observe within myself. It was like, what's that about? Like, so I'm realizing that I was so attached to the outcome. And again, I think it ties to that, those fears around money. Like, And so I realized that I have to let go of the outcome, and I have to just create for the joy of creating, and we'll see what happens. And so I share this all with you because I know it's all things that you are either going through or are going to experience. And so it's about staying in the joy and creating for the joy of it, and creating because you're serving, not because you think it's going to bring anything to you in particular. Staying in that high vibe is already going to attract things to you. You're going to be like a magnet because we are abundant. But again, it comes down to like, where are we blocking ourselves? Where are we blocking ourselves? Where are we making it hard? That's the other thing. Make it super simple for people to buy from you. Don't be making it super complicated. Don't be making them walk through a million hoops. Make it simple. If you think about it, when you go to a store, you go there, you buy the thing, you leave, right? How would it be if you like walked into the store and they're like checking your bags and they're like making you, they're like, oh, here, let me take you on a labyrinth. Let me take you on a tour of the store, right? And then they were doing everything they could to like block you from actually checking out. Like you have your stuff there, you're like, okay, I'm ready to check out. And then they're like, oh, but come over here, check out the cookie case. I don't know. Like, you see what I'm saying though? Like, make it as simple as possible to buy from you. Like, period. And then the other thing I want to mention is like around manifesting. I heard a great analogy the other day around manifesting, right? It's like we put out what we desire, and we, they use the analogy. I don't know if I mentioned this in a video already, so forgive me if I have. But they use the analogy that like manifesting, if you could treat it more like Amazon, like putting an Amazon order in, like we'd be so much better off and the results would be so much better. Again, it's like not being attached to the outcome. So when you place an order on Amazon, right, you get on, you pick out your thing and you order it, and you just trust that it's going to show up at your door. You don't sit there and wonder like, well, now is FedEx going to bring that, or is that going to come UPS or maybe US Postal Service? I wonder how they packaged it. Do you think they put enough bubble wrap in there? Like, you don't think about that stuff. You just trust it's going to show up at your door. Well, that's what manifesting is about too. It's about, right? I thought that was so good. It's about placing your order, staying in the high vibe of that excitement of why you want the thing or whatever, and then just trusting it's going to show up instead of like freaking out about how's it going to happen, where's it going to, how's it going to get here, who's going to deliver, I don't know, right? Just like trust that it's going to make it to you, because again, what is for you will not miss you. So yeah, that's what I got. What time have we got? This did not turn out to be intuitive guidance today. I mean, it is intuitive guidance, but not in the way that I thought. See, how funny is that? It's like I came on here thinking like, oh, I'm going to do live guidance, like psychic readings, right? Instead, that's not what happened. But guess what? I have a feeling that some people will get value out of this. Maybe. But you know what? I'm going to let go of the outcome and say like, hey, it was what it was. And we'll try again. Instead of getting all wrapped up in like, oh my gosh, what if nobody comes on here because I didn't do a live, a psychic reading? No. I came on here and clearly the messages that needed to be delivered got delivered either way. They weren't, exactly how I do intuitive guidance readings every Wednesday night, but they still happened. And it happened in the way it was supposed to. So, thank you for being here. And thank you for watching. And for anyone watching the replay, I say thank you to you as well. And just a reminder, thanks for the love, guys. Just a reminder real quick, what time is it? We got 6 more hours. I love you too, both of you. 6 more hours to grab the grab and go sessions. This is my savings to you as a thank you for all you do to inspire me to create. Normally, psychic readings, mediumship, mentorship, coaching is like $175 to $300. For 6 more hours, it's $89. You can grab 1 session or grab 50 sessions. I don't care. It's up to you. But this is a chance to save big time. If you're interested in doing a psychic reading or coaching or intuitive guidance, whatever, it's all for you. So that offer ends tonight at midnight. So be sure to get in on that if you want some. What else? Oh yeah, Wednesday I'll be doing a live guidance on my Facebook group. So watch for that. And the Brave Babe 8-week coaching program I have extended. Enrollment ends on July 2nd. So if that's something you're still considering, jump on in before all the spots are gone. Other than that, I think that's all I got for you tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I love doing these, even though this one was a little different. It was all good. And yeah, I'm just so happy to serve you. That's all. I feel like I have the hiccups. Mwah! What else? I don't know if I have anything else. I think that's it. Yeah. But I will do this. I will do an intuitive guidance reading again, maybe during the week sometime, in the group. And actually, I'll probably do it more like an event. So that way more people can know about it, hear about it, and then show up for it too. So, but either way, it was good stuff today. And dang, we went for an hour. So, holla. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I love you all. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to fill in the poll because I want to know more of what you're wanting in this group so I can help you get there. All right. Take care and I will see you mañana. Hey, there is a Spanish word. Thanks, Jeannie. Love you. Bye.